arterial disorders in two broad categories. So we will start with peripheral occlusive disorders. So as you all know, the main culprit in peripheral arterial diseases is commonly a thrombus or an emboli. Okay, and you know what causes thrombus in blood vessels? It is the atherosclerotic plaque. So this disease can manifest in two forms. One is an acute form and the other is a chronic occlusive disorder. So in acute, just like anywhere else in the body, my lecture today as a surgeon is going to be pertaining to the limbs, the upper limb and the lower limb. As you can see, in acute disorders, if it is in the coronary artery, it leads on to myocardial infarction. If it is in the brain, a blood vessel supplying the brain, it leads to CVA. Similarly, if there is a thromboembolic phenomenon to limbs, it causes acute arterial occlusion of the limb and the limb is under threat. So there is golden hour for cardiac disorders, there is golden hour for stroke, there is golden hour for limb also. So when there is an embolic phenomenon that has caused sudden occlusion of blood flow to a particular limb or multiple limbs, there is a golden hour and you can salvage the limb if intervened in a acute setting. So you should, as an MBBS qualifying doctors, you should know to diagnose this disorder and refer to the corresponding specialty department so that the patient is addressed in a brief time by the specialist and they can try to salvage the limb. So far you are okay with the introduction? Are you able to follow? Is it the speed okay? Anyone can respond? Hello?
Yes, sir. We're able to follow.
You are able to follow. Okay, okay. So now like I said, it can be a thrombotic phenomenon or an emboli phenomenon. An emboli can start from the heart. So when you see any patient who is come with acute limb pain, so you just cannot ignore the heart. The problem may have started in the heart. Okay, and examination of pulse is a very important examination that you need to do. Simultaneously, examination of the heart. So auscultation, ECG, if the pulse is irregular in the upper limb and patient is presenting with lower limb, whether patient is in atrial fibrillation, whether patient has got any history of valvular heart disease which can throw embolic phenomenon, all these things you need to consider. Or the patient may be suffering from a systemic disease called atherosclerosis. Okay. So what are the clinical features? How does an acute occlusive disease of a limb present? So they will complain of pain. Okay, so here it's very easy to remember 5 P's. I'm going to say the first P is pain. Second thing is the limb will look pale, so pallor. Paralysis, patient will not be able, if it is lower limb, patient is unable to walk. If it is upper limb, he is unable to use the limb. Then when you see, there will be paresthesia, abnormal sensation in the limb. There will be pulselessness when you examine the peripheral pulses. Can you let me know what are the peripheral pulses needed to be examined in a lower limb? Can somebody say? Anyone would like to try? Pulselessness. What are all the pulses? Right-sided, acute, ischemic limb. Patient is telling for last 1 hour he has got pain in the right limb, lower limb. What are the pulses you would like to examine in this case? Is there a delay? Hello? Can anyone respond? Hello?
So dorsalis pedis posterior tibia.
Okay, dorsalis pedis. Anything else? One of the pulse is dorsalis pedis. Yes, that's correct. And where do you palpate the pulse? The artery? Any surface marking? In the foot, where do you?
Femoral.
Sorry? The dorsalis pedis. Where
Between
do
the
you?
first two metacarpal heads.
Metacarpal head. No. No. Is there a tendon that you can palpate? Something that you can ask
External
the patient?
hallucis.
Yeah, external hallucis longus, just lateral to external hallucis longus between the heads of the metatarsals. Okay, so that is the point where you can palpate. Any other artery? The dorsalis pedis you wanted to look for, and the right dorsalis pedis is absent. Left side you could feel the pulse. Next artery. Any other artery in the foot? Right foot dorsalis pedis not palpable. Next, anything else you would like to palpate? You suspect the patient has got an arterial embolus or occlusion of the right sided. So, what are the arteries in the limb? Major arteries: femoral artery in the thigh, then popliteal artery in the knee, then divides into
Posterior.
anterotibial artery and posterior tibial artery. The anterior tibial artery continues as the dorsalis pedis artery. So now dorsalis pedis is absent, and you know the surface marking where you have to look for dorsalis pedis. It is absent. So dorsalis pedis continues proximally as which artery continues to become a dorsalis pedis artery beyond the extensor tendon. What is it? Anterior tibial artery. Where do you palpate for anterior tibial artery? Has anyone palpated anterior tibial artery in colleagues or in patients? Radial artery, everybody would have palpated. Nothing prevents you from palpating the anterior tibial artery. Shall I call roll numbers to answer, or is it okay that someone answers? Yes, I think everybody is logged in, but not everybody is listening. I don't want comments. It's very difficult to. Can you talk? Unmute and talk. Uh, is everyone with me?
The lower end of tibia.
Yeah, it is between the malleolus. The bony marks you can feel. Okay, the medial malleolus and the lateral malleolus in between on the dorsal aspect. Okay, at the level of medial malleolus. Posterior tibial artery. Where do you palpate? Posterior tibial artery. Okay, it's taking too much time. I believe you have a medicine class also at 2 p.m. So you need to read DAS, okay, peripheral arterial disorders. So posterior tibial artery is palpated behind the medial malleolus, between the medial malleolus and your Achilles tendon. So today you palpate on yourself. All these arteries are palpable arteries, okay, or on your friends with their consent. Then popliteal artery. Popliteal artery is difficult to palpate, but it can be palpated. It can be palpated in two maneuvers. One, when the patient is lying on the couch, you have to ask the patient to flex the knee 40 degrees and with the heel touching the couch. Okay, the heel should be placed on the couch, and you have to flex so that the muscles are relaxed. It is palpated at the lower end of the popliteal fossa against the tibial condyle. Femoral artery, you ask the patient to little bit external rotate the lower limb and flex the hip little bit, and it is palpated below the mid-inguinal point, which is the line midpoint between the symphysis pubis and anterior iliac spine. Just below that, you can feel the femoral artery. So, assuming the femoral artery is present and popliteal artery and below, you cannot feel any pulse. So, there is some block beyond the femoral artery. Okay, so that can happen. So, The another P, the sixth P in clinical features of ischemic limbs are perishing cold. So when you touch the limb, that limb is very cold compared to other parts of the body. Okay, so that is the sixth P. So in the I told you in the limbs, these are the signs. If it is a brain, you have transient ischemia, patient may be unconscious. If it is eye, then patient may lose sight. There will be blurring of vision. If it is abdominal vessel, patient may come with abdominal pain. If it is heart, then it leads to myocardial infarction. Okay. So acute limb ischemia, usually it is within 6 hours. So it can be reversed if you can intervene within 6 hours. So that is the golden hour. 3 hours is the best time. 6 hours is the time within which if you intervene, the limb can be salvaged. So what happens if you cannot intervene? A remote area person presents very late, or the doctor who is first addressed could not diagnose that the patient is having a limb ischemia, a critical ischemia. So late presentations are very common in our settings because patients come from remote places and diagnostic delays are there. So then you cannot salvage the limb. Patient loses the limb. It is amputation at appropriate level. So to prevent losing the limb, we need to act fast. So that is why your role as an MBBS doctor, when you go, you have to suspect that the patient has got an occlusive disease of the blood vessel, and timely referral and timely intervention is very, very crucial for salvage of the limb. So you get this point now? Your role till you become specialist and super specialist. When you start practicing, you should be able to identify. It's very simple. Whenever there is a pain, you look for pallor, see if the limb is paralyzed, see that the peripheral pulses are there or not. If there are no peripheral pulses, suspect a limb ischemia and timely refer to a place where the patient can be treated. You get my point? So that
Yes,
is,
sir.
yeah, that is the drive home message. Okay. So you should know the anatomy of the lower limb, anatomy, arterial anatomy of the lower limb and the upper limb, where to look for these pulsations, and then you will be able to diagnose this condition. So this is a picture representing the 6 P's. So whenever there is limb ischemia, a question on limb ischemia, don't forget the word P. Okay, and with the word P, letter P, you can keep on adding 6 words, and that is where you will get your marks. So what is the treatment of an embolic phenomenon? You have to diagnose by what? How can you diagnose an embolic phenomenon? What do you do if a patient is suspected to have an angina? What is the investigation done for such a patient? Anybody? For angina, angina pectoris. Now you need to be fast. Can anyone say? So, chest pain, acute left-sided chest pain, suspected to be an MI. What is the investigation?
ECG, sir.
ECG is okay. Now ECG shows ST segment elevation or depression, and you know it is an MI. You don't know where the coronary artery blockage is. So what would you do to know the blockage? Whether it's a triple vessel disease, single vessel disease.
Angiograms.
Angiogram,
MR
same thing.
angiogram.
MR angiogram takes time. Conventional angiogram. Conventional angiogram is done because in an acute setting, it is both diagnostic and therapeutic. You get it? Interventional. You would have seen people writing cardiology, interventional cardiology. What do you mean by interventional cardiology? People who do angioplasties, people who do angiograms, cardiologists who do angiogram, they write themselves as interventional cardiology. You would have seen Apollo or Meot or wherever you go, no? Interventional cardiology. There's nothing like different degree. They're all MD, DM. But few people do angiography. They are skilled enough to do angioplasty. They call themselves, they want to be called separately from the rest of the crowd who do not do these procedures. So they call themselves as interventional cardiologists. There is no different degree, but there are cardiologists and there are interventional cardiologists. That is how people market themselves. So you would have seen, no? So conventional angiography is you have to get an access through an arterial system. You put in a catheter and you reach the point where you want to study, like coronary artery. So the origin of the coronary artery is reached. You need a C-arm and you need a dye. You inject a dye, which is a radio contrast material, and you under the C-arm, you see where the blockage is. The same thing, conventional angiography can be done for limb ischemia also. It is called conventional angiography. When it is not a critical thing, you suspect it's not an MI. Like here, if it is a chronic limb ischemia, then you can go for MR angiogram, wherein a contrast is given and you study the arterial system by giving a contrast, or you can do a CT angiogram, which is a radio hazard material, but still it is a good investigation of choice. Okay, so these two are gold standard. Conventional is the gold standard. It gives you access. You diagnose that there is an emboli, okay, or you diagnose there is a thrombus. You can intervene also by placing an endovascular stent. Okay, so that is called angioplasty, or when it is done in the limbs, it is called stent. So you have an advantage. If it is an emboli has to undergo embolectomy. So that can be done intravascular procedure also, or it can be done as an open method, a surgical procedure wherein a Fogarty balloon catheter is used, and that slide will also come, and I will show you what a Fogarty catheter is. And if it is a thrombus that has caused occlusion, you can do thrombolysis. So thrombolytic agents are present. So using thrombolytic injections, you can lyse the thrombus, and then you can maintain the blood flow by antiplatelet therapy or anticoagulant therapy. So you understand how to manage now. Once you have diagnosed an arterial occlusive disorder, it can be an embolus. If it is an emboli, you have to take into consideration the heart, the status of the heart. If it is an atrial fibrillation, you need to reverse the atrial fibrillation also simultaneously when you are treating the limb. Or if it is an MI that has lead on to a embolus, so that also needs to be taken care of. But if it is an embolic phenomenon involving only the limb, then you think about limb. The life has to be taken care of before you think about the limb alone. So don't miss the emboli may be from an atrial fibrillation patient, may be a mitral stenosis patient with an enlarged left atrium, congestive cardiac failure, throwing an AF causing an embolic phenomenon, an embolus presenting in the right lower limb. So you need to see as a whole. So basic investigations will include an ECG, auscultating the heart, and looking for other signs whether the heart is normal. Echocardiogram can be done if you suspect a heart is also a problem, and other things. Okay, so heparinization and anticoagulation, acute setting thrombolysis can be done. I hope you have followed till now. Am I slow? Am I fast?
We are following, sir.
Yeah, okay. Now, once you have intervened, embolus, Fogarty catheter, embolic phenomenon involving the iliofemoral region. Okay, iliac artery continues as femoral artery. In that region, you had a block, you had a embolus. Embolus has been removed, and the distal flow. So once you have removed the embolus, you will palpate the popliteal artery, you will palpate the distal tibial, the anterior tibial artery, posterior tibial artery, and dorsal spinalis. Everything is palpable. Do you think the treatment is over, or the patient can lead on to complication? So one complication that you should never forget is compartment syndrome. Now, between the presentation and your intervention, there has been ischemia. Okay, there was deficient blood flow to the region due to this. Now you have removed. Now you have established the blood flow, but whatever has damage, that cannot be reversed if it has not been done in the golden hour. You follow? So the free radical damage, you would have heard patients who have MI also, though they have been intervened, they do not recover the cardiac function, the pumping capacity of the heart. For few, it becomes normal. For few, they become a chronic heart failure patient for the entire life. The ejection fraction remains 30%, 40%, 50%. It never comes back to normal because the myocardium has suffered a permanent damage, or when the reflow was established, there is a free radical injury to the myocardium, thereby making the muscles weak. Similarly, in the limb, this can free radical damage can lead to localized muscle necrosis, muscle edema, causing compartment syndrome. So what is compartment? Increased intra-compartmental pressure. So in anatomy, you would have read in thigh there are different compartments. In leg there is different compartments, isn't it? Similarly, so when there is a compartment syndrome, though intraoperatively you have established the blood flow, in the post-operative period again the pulse disappears. The limb becomes swollen. Then again you are seeing that dorsalis pedis is not palpable. So that means that patient has got a compartment syndrome, and compartment syndrome is another emergency which has to be treated by fasciotomy. You have to release the pressure, or else the vessel is getting compressed from outside and thereby leading to necrosis, and still the patient may lose the limb in spite of your intervention. So you can follow this. Compartment syndrome, very, very important. After revascularization has been established, there is damage mostly driven by free radicals. You follow this?
Sir, is there any muscular swelling compressing the arteries in post-compartment syndrome? In compartmental syndrome?
That's what
Post-syndrome.
happens. Edema, muscle becomes bulky, and vessels running through that, the nerves running through that get compressed. That is what is compartment syndrome.
Okay. Thank
This
you.
happens due to free radical injury. Okay. So now we'll go on to chronic limb ischemia. So chronic limb ischemia, the most important symptom is claudication. So this is the clotting means what? Anybody? Claudication, the word claudication. Literal meaning of word claudication. Limping. So anybody who has got a limp is called claudication. Okay. So patient walks for some distance and then the pain starts. This is called claudication pain. When the patient stops walking or stops exercising, the pain disappears. Again, for the same distance, when the patient walks, be it 500 meters, 700 meters, or a kilometer, the pain reappears. So this is called claudication pain on use. When the limb is in use, it causes pain. When the limb is at rest, the pain disappears. Okay? And then when you have lower limb pain, you have to calculate the claudication distance. How far a patient can walk without pain. Okay? And based upon the vessel that is involved, the pain site will be, it can be in the calf muscle, it can be in the thigh, it can be in the buttocks. So that depends upon the level at which the vessel has got occluded in the lower limb I'm talking about. In upper limb, when they are working, a household lady, she is working, she is not able to press, she feels the arm is weak and then there is pain. So that is in upper limb ischemia. Lower limb ischemia, distance, walking. The problem is in walking. Okay. So the muscle group affected will be one level below the level of artery. What do you understand by this? If popliteal artery is the culprit, there is no flow beyond popliteal artery, the patient will experience pain in the calf. If the femoral artery is occluded, the pain will be in the thigh region. If it is aortic region, the bifurcation, the common iliac arteries, then the patient will experience pain in the buttock and below. So you get this point? The muscle group that is affected is one group beyond the artery that has got occluded. The most common cause of chronic limb ischemia is atherosclerosis. Thrombotic atherosclerotic plaque causing significant luminal narrowing, stenosis of the blood vessel due to plaque formation, and decreased blood flow to the distal area. Can you get this point? It's very important. You will be asked question
Yes,
about
sir.
claudication, claudication distance, claudication pain, what level pain, which level of artery involved. All this will be asked to you. So you should be in a position to answer because I have taken a class for you. Then patient is at rest. Patient is lying on the bed and still there is pain. So this is next level. Next level means there is ischemia. So you may see the patient has got ischemic changes in the limb. blackening of the toe. Okay, the most distal arterial disorders will usually affect the most distal part in the body. So the blood flow to the most distal part, where in the lower limb it is toes, in upper limb it is the fingers. So the most distal part you have to see whether it is normal, abnormal. Blackening of great toe, blackening of little toe, blackening of second toe, third toe. So that means there is gangrene. What is gangrene? So a toe is black, completely black. Patient is complaining of pain even at rest. Patient is lying on the bed, but is still saying, "Sir, my limb is paining, my limb is paining." And you look at the toe, the great toe looks completely black, mummified. What is gangrene? How do you define it? Macroscopic cell death. What is microscopic cell death? Necrosis. So don't say necrosis by looking at a black toe. You should say it is gangrene. Got it? Pathologists will say necrosis, clinicians will say gangrene. You get this point? So pain during rest, mostly at night, relieved by hanging the foot. So what when the patient leaves the limb in a dependent position, there is little bit of blood flow. When it is anti-gravity, that little blood flow is also not there, so they will have pain. Okay, so that is why they will be. So now this is a picture showing a gangrene. So the well demarcation, you can see which is black and which is red or whatever, a well demarcated area with ulceration you can see. Okay. So all this has been taken from Bailey and Love only. So today when you will read Bailey and Love, you will follow it better. So features of chronic limb ischemia will be intermittent claudication, rest pain, dependent on rubor or sunset foot, dependent rubor or sunset foot, ulceration, gangrene, arterial pulsation is diminished or absent. There may be bruit and capillary filling. How do you look for capillary filling? Capillary refilling. You have to press the, if it is upper limb, the pulp space, no? The pulp region of the fingers. When you keep it pressed, it blanches. And once you release, within 3 seconds, it fills. Similarly, in the toes. So when you are going to press it, within 3 to 5 seconds is the normal filling time. This will be delayed. So there is a delayed capillary filling time. Okay. What is venous filling refilling time? What is the sign called? Name a vein that is seen in everybody in the lower limb. Name the vein that can be seen in the foot. A superficial venous system of the foot. Saphenous. What do you understand by the word saphenous? Saphena means well seen, something that is well seen. That is how the word, the name for the vein came. Was it taught to you in anatomy class? Saphena means well seen. You thought Saphena is some doctor's name, huh? Okay. So, saphenous. So, Harvey's sign, if you put two fingers over the vein, a segment of the vein, and then the proximal finger, you milk the vein, okay, and then you lift the distal finger. Immediately the blood will get filled. You can do this test today on yourself or on your friends with consent of your friends, okay. Don't touch them without their consent. So venous refilling, within few seconds if it fills, it is normal. In an ischemic limb, even the venous refilling is delayed. Capillary, I told you, pressurizing the most distal part. If it is fingers, it is the pulp region in the toes, blanching and reappearance of redness, erythema. So once it becomes pink, it should become pink in a normal individual who has got no obstruction. It takes 3 to 5 seconds and it is normal. Anything beyond 5 seconds is abnormal. So delayed refilling, capillary refilling and venous refilling. Peripheral pulsation examination, very, very important. Harvey's sign, you should know what it is. Okay. So what is Nico-Randy's sign? What is Burgess test? So few names you should not forget when it comes to arterial disorders. Okay, so all this is your homework. Okay, and when you come for clinics, we will demonstrate these signs to you. What is Berger angle? All that will be demonstrated. So you have to read Das, you have to read Bailey and Love. So relationship of clinical findings to the site. I told you, no, there is femoral artery, there is iliac artery, then the femoral artery, then popliteal artery, and then there is distal obstruction. So aorta bifurcates into common iliacs. So when common iliacs is blocked, or aortoiliac block at the bifurcation, it is called saddle block. Okay, saddle region. So there is a thrombus sitting where the aorta ends and both the iliac vessels start. So at that point, when you have obstruction, the distal to it is buttocks. Okay, the muscle bulk is in the posterior part. So the patient will have pain from buttocks to thigh and calves. The entire limb is painful and the buttock region will be painful. So you have to think that at the level of bifurcation, where the artery to the lower limb starts itself, it is blocked. So you have to look for aortic pulsation. Very difficult to palpate aorta in a obese patient. In a lean patient, you can still try to palpate aortic pulsation. Usually, aortic pulsation cannot be palpated. Iliac, external iliac can be palpated. Internal iliac you cannot palpate. External iliac is palpated above the mid-inguinal point, and internal iliac cannot be palpated. Femoral artery is palpated distal to the mid-inguinal point, I told you. So all these pulses you would have to examine and look for any bruit. And in male patients, it is accommodated where there is another syndrome called Leriche syndrome. Patient will have impotence. Impotence due to internal iliac. The blood vessel, see, aortoiliac block means the external iliac artery supplies the lower limb. The internal iliac artery supplies the pelvic organs. Okay, so when pelvic organs also blood supply is diminished, in male they will have impotence. Okay, iliac obstruction. The aorta is normal, the bifurcation is normal. Iliac, the external iliac artery is occluded. So patient will have only thigh and calf pain, and sometimes there may be buttocks pain because the thrombus may progress to the aorta also. The bruit may be heard in the iliac region. If you keep your when the pulse is absent and you keep your steth, you can have a bruit also. Femoropopliteal occlusion, beyond the femoral artery and between the popliteal artery occlusion. Characteristically, patient will have calf pain. The thigh region, patient will say there is no pain, but the pain from calf below, it is there. Distal obstruction, only ankle region and claudication. Patient may have calf pain on walking. So you get this thing, you get the level of block and the pain where it is there anatomically. Very, very important, basic, but very important. Can I progress to investigations? Can I get some feedback?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So investigations, like I told you, no. So investigations will be basic investigations. Never forget the heart. The heart may be the source of all the problems. So see whether the upper limb pulsation are present when the lower limb are absent. Look how much is the patient in shock. Patient is hypotensive. That all contributes. Peripheral pulse will be absent even in a non-occlusive disease when the patient is in hypotension, say 80-50 BP. You may not be able to feel any femoral artery also may not be palpable, only carotid artery will be palpable. With a normal blood pressure, patient is not a known cardiac disease. You should not suspect everybody to be a arterial disorder, peripheral arterial disorder when the heart is the problem. Congestive cardiac failure, patient may not have a normal pumping capacity of the heart. So first rule out cardiac, see whether the blood pressure is normal, ECG, patient has got chest pain or not, valvular heart disease, patient is on anticoagulation or not. All these things you have to take in history, and then after ruling out everything, you can concentrate on the limb. Never forget the heart. Heart is the part of cardiovascular system. The all blood vessels will start from heart only, from aorta only. Okay. Echocardiogram, when you suspect a cardiac disorder, or you have to do an echocardiogram. ABG, when there is, if it is a cor pulmonale case. Okay. the most important tool, if you see vascular surgeons in our hospital, the postgraduates, they'll be walking around with a handheld Doppler. Okay, so it is a simple device. It can be carried around, a handheld Doppler. It does not generate images. It only creates sound. So when you keep your Doppler probe on the blood vessel, if you hear the sound, then there is blood flow. Sometimes pulses are not palpable, but it generates the sound. And with the sound, you know that there is blood flow in that blood vessel, say dorsalis pedis artery. In very obese people, it may be difficult to palpate the artery. So more specific is a Doppler. But you want to generate images. If you want to generate images, the investigation is a Doppler Doppler. So Doppler Doppler will generate images. It will show the blood flow. It will give you different color codes also depending upon the velocity of the blood flow. So that is done by the radiologist, Doppler Doppler. It cannot be done by clinicians. Clinicians can maximum carry a handheld Doppler which does not generate any image but creates sound. Okay, you get this thing? What is a Doppler and what is a Doppler Doppler? Hey, come on,
Yes, sir.
very yeah. Doppler Doppler is an ultrasound device. You have seen ultrasound machines in our emergency wards. If it is compatible with a Doppler thing, then you can see the images also, okay, of the blood vessel and the flow. It will give you different color codes, orange, red, green, depending upon the velocity of blood flow. Okay, then what is there with the clinicians is the ankle brachial pressure index. The normal ankle brachial pressure index is 0.9 to 1.3. So you have to measure the ankle pressure as well as a brachial pressure. To measure ankle pressure, you need the handheld Doppler. You cannot put stethoscope and see the ankle pressure. So when you inflate the cuff in the calf region, when it is tied and inflate the cuff, you have to see the ankle pressure. With the handheld Doppler, you can measure the ankle pressure. Brachial pressure, normal blood pressure cuff, it is tied around the arm. You keep auscultation on the brachial artery, whatever reading, the systolic pressure. You ankle systolic pressure divided by brachial systolic pressure. Usually, the lower limb is a bulkier limb, so it is more in the lower limb, the systolic pressure. For example, systolic in the right ankle region is 130 millimeters of mercury. In the right arm, it is 120. So your ratio will be more than 1. 130 by 120 is more than 1. Or say 120, 120, same. So 1. So this is a normal ratio. In a patient who is suffering from claudication, the lower limb is affected, the ratio will be less. It will be 120 in the lower limb of the affected limb and 140 in the upper limb. So now the ratio is systolic pressure, only the systolic pressure, not the diastolic pressure. Okay. Patient is complaining of rest pain or you can see some gangrene. When you see gangrene, you need not measure the ankle brachial pressure index. It will be less than 0.3. Rest pain is less, between 0.3 and 0.5, imminent necrosis or like that. Okay. So you understand what is ankle brachial pressure index, and this is a diagram that is representing how a Doppler Doppler works. There is a transducer, it generates waves and the blood vessels that are the blood flowing through that and the skin. Okay, like I told you how to measure the ankle pressure. Can you see the cuff is tied around the calf, and this is the handheld Doppler that you would simple handheld Doppler, which our postgraduates in the vascular surgery department, you would be seeing them, they'll be having this device in their pocket. Okay, you can request them to show them whenever you get a chance. A Doppler scanning. A Doppler scanning is done by the radiology department in our institute. So they will see the images and they will report how much is the blood flow. So now here you can see a image of a carotid vessel. See common carotid artery dividing into external and internal carotid artery. So it shows at the bifurcation there is a stenosis. Okay, so you can see that the vessel is seen nicely in a Doppler Doppler. Then another radiological investigation that can be done is DSA. It used to be done before. Nowadays, it is not done because it is an invasive test. A dye is injected and then they take images. and they digitalize those images. It's just an X-ray where you delete everything. You delete unwanted things. You delete the soft tissue, everything. Only the artery you will see. So it is a digital subtraction angiography. It has been replaced by CT angiogram or by your MR angiogram. The similar dye is injected and a CT scan has been done, okay, or an MRI scan has been done, and they look at the blood vessel status. So now management of arterial stenosis. So it is divided into non-surgical management and surgical management. The non-surgical management, I told you, anticoagulants, antiplatelet drugs, and endovascular procedures that are transluminal angioplasty and stenting. Surgical management, you have a segment that has got blocked or stenosed. So you have to bypass that area. So it is called anatomical bypass. When say there is a blockage at the aortoiliac blockage. So what you will do, the healthy segment of aorta, there you have to, from there the blood flow has to come to distal femoral artery. So you will have a bypass. You will have to place a graft that will carry the blood, a conduit that will carry the blood from the aorta, bypassing the stenotic segment, and you have to anastomose it to femoral artery, which will supply the blood to the entire lobe. You can understand that? It is called anatomical. The extra anatomical is when you take it from a different anatomical region, a blood vessel that is supplying the hand, you are taking it and putting it into the lower limb, upper limb artery supplying the lower limb. So it is called extra anatomy. Or the left limb artery, which is healthy, is going to supply the right limb, lower limb itself, the left femoral to left right femoral. It is called extra anatomical. You get this point? What is anatomical and extra anatomical? Anatomical is in continuity from aorta, same side. If you are taking, it is in continuity. Or aorta bifemoral bypass also are there, where if it is at the common iliac vessel, if you have a block, so patient will present with bilateral limb ischemia. So from aorta, you have to put a graft that will supply both the limbs. So in general, what is the causative factor? So most of them will be smokers. They might be uncontrolled diabetes, treatment of hypertension, treatment of hyperlipidemia, exercise. All these things has to be incorporated with surgical management. So like I told you, non-surgical management, mainly it is anticoagulants, antiplatelet drugs, and statins to control dyslipidemia and control the progression of atherosclerotic plaque. Transluminal angioplasty, this is by stenting. There are balloon catheters, that are medicated stent, there are non-medicated stent, there are metallic stent. So I am not going to go into the details. So this is a Fogarty catheter. If there is a embolic phenomenon, we the collapse loop, no, you go beyond the segment, and you can, this is a catheter that will remove the thrombus or the stenotic segment, by can be widened by this. So this is an image showing a post dilatation. The stenosis you can see, left renal artery is stenosed in the left, on the left of your screen, stenosed, and after this balloon dilatation, you can see how big it has become. Can you see the pointer now? I am showing a pointer. This is after treatment. You can see the stenotic segment here. Pre-stenotic, this is the renal vein here, that is stenotic. This is the stenotic segment after intervention. See how beautifully it dilates. Balloon dilatation, no stent placed. This can, to maintain this patency, you might have to stent the vessel. So once you put a balloon catheter, mechanically you can enlarge the vessel, but then to make it remain patent for years after intervention, you might have to deploy a stent. And there comes metallic stent, non-metallic stent, medicated stent, and other plastic stents. So many things are there. Based upon patient's affordability, you may use whatever is required in a given case. Okay. So I was talking about, see, these balloon catheters can carry the stent. So this is stent, okay, expandable, SEM, self-expanding metallic stent, SEMS, okay. So surgical methods, I told you, no, anatomical bypass, extra anatomical bypass. Depending upon the level of occlusion, you have to choose. But the most important thing in bypass is the distal vessels should be normal. There are diseases where it is not atherosclerosis, the distal runoff. The distal vessels are all stenosed. So there is no point when you have a proximal occlusion and the distal vessel health is not good, then patient will invariably lead to amputation. So that you have to keep in mind, if the distal arterial system is normal, then you can bypass the occlusion area or the stenotic area. If the distal vessels are all pathological, then there is not much gain that the patient will get out of surgical management or by any medical intervention. So such patients are treated by drugs, and one fine day when they develop gangrene or when they are in severe pain, so to relieve them of pain, you will have to amputate the limb. Okay. So this is an image that is depicting your, see this, this is what I was telling. This segment, aortoiliac occlusion. So this is the left and right renal vein. So from the healthy segment, this is a graft. This graft can be a vein, or when this is such a big length, you cannot have any individual vein. This is a PTFE graft. So commonest Dacron graft or PTFE graft is the commonest thing. This is called aortobiliac bypass. So from aorta, the iliac vessels, or aortobifemoral. If you are going to put it at the, this is at the femoral. This black line is inguinal region. So you have put it across the femoral. So aortoiliac or aortofemoral. This is femoral. When you place it to the iliac vessel, it is called aortoiliac bypass. Now this is aortofemoral graft. Now here only one limb, one area is affected. You see, here the important point is the distal vessel is normal. When the distal vessel is diseased, all these things cannot be done. Okay, so these are different types of Dacron graft, PTFE graft. So all those things. So I think I will conclude today's class because of want of time, and I will take aneurysm some other day. Okay. 154. I don't think you will be able to follow anything beyond this. So TAO is something that you will have to read. Okay. So shall I close my presentation? We'll go to the meet.
Sir, if a patient had mesenteric ischemia, there's an arterial block there, sir, in mesenteric arteries. What would we be able to do for the patient, sir? The patient would only be saying stomach pain, sir.
Yeah, stomach pain, and they may present with gangrene. And they may be very sick patients. You may have peritonitis due to gangrene, bowel perforation, contamination of peritoneal cavity. Most of them present very late, so we might not be able to do much for them.
Okay.
So, we do get late presentations.
Okay, so by that time we won't be able to ascertain the causes, sir.
No, cause can be ascertained, but at that point in time, you can only resect the gangrene. Like in the limb, amputation is the last resort. When everything fails, what do? You amputate.
Amputate.
Similarly, whatever is gangrene, that cannot be reversed. So whatever is gangrenous has to be cut. So once your resection is over, in a vascular disorder, when vascularity is in question, you will have to create stoma only. You cannot do an anastomosis. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Anastomosis is not possible.
Yes. Anastomosis is not possible. Same sitting, nobody does it. When there is gangrene, today the gangrene, because you wouldn't have done any arterial study. You would have just done a plain CT scan. Plain CT scan will not tell you anything about the blood vessel.
Yes, sir.
So you have to do a contrast study. And if the renal veins are also involved, say it will be superior mesenteric artery or inferior mesenteric artery. If it is superior mesenteric artery, it may be alone, or it can be a part of abdominal aorta stenosis, where even the renal vein, renal artery would have been affected. So you can't give a contrast if renal parameters are elevated, because the contrast has to be excreted through the kidneys. If that is not flowing properly, then you cannot know. So there are limitations. In such scenarios, you cannot do much. But in a chronic mesenteric ischemia, you can do vascular interventions can be done, mostly endovascular. When it comes to GI tract, the procedures are difficult, and it's very difficult to do a bypass in those regions. So most of them are treated with anticoagulants, first by injectables, heparin or low molecular weight heparin, usually by conventional heparin, and then they are put on lifelong anticoagulants to maintain this thing.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any questions, or can we conclude the session today? I hope you understood the lecture, and comments and criticism are always welcome. Shall we conclude?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the representative can take the attendance today. I'm not.
Yes, sir, we have already marked that.
Mark the attendance. I don't know if my postgraduate are also listening to my lecture. Can you see any of my postgraduate in your lecture? No. Because
1 minute.
how do you mark attendance usually?
In this app, we have roll numbers, sir. In the
Okay.
mail ID, we insert the roll number. So usually it gets arranged in the roll number order. So easily it
Okay.
will be, the absentees will be easily seen.
Can you just the class rep? Can you just send me the absentees alone so that I can mark them absent?
Yeah, sure, sir. I will send it
Okay.
to you.
Thank you so much for patient listening. I hope. Yes. Anybody wants to say something? You can log out for your next class.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.